Pagi.
Selamat datang, welcome everybody in our monthly meeting for MHPE Friendship Webinar. So happy to have all of you here for our today's session. Today we're going to have our expert sharing about social accountability. In this webinar session, theme socially accountable health professions education, why and how. I can see here that all of our expert speakers already joining us here. Good morning, Prof. Titi. Good morning, Nick and Dr. Tama.
Morning,
Morning.
selamat pagi.
Good evening.
Selamat pagi. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? And next, Mbak Dani. Okay, before we start our session, I will briefly overview what we're going to have today. This morning, we're going to have three presentations followed by question and answer session. The first one will be from Professor Dr. Titi Safitri. The topic will be the role of accreditation in social accountability of health profession education curricula. And then the second speaker will be Nicholas Torres, MED, with the topic of social accountability assessment tool of health professions education curricula. And the third presenter will be Dr. Pratama Santoso Utomo, MHPE, sorry, about the social accountability in health professions education, the scope and its rationale. Okay, and then I will be followed by general discussion. Okay, so before we start with our first speaker, I think that would be appropriate if we start and open our session by praying that the session will be beneficial for all of us. So let's take a moment of silence. Praying start. Okay, finish. Thank you. Okay, so for our first speaker here we have Professor Dr. Titi Safitri Prihatiningsih MA, MHED, PhD. Okay, it took quite some time ya to only mention the name and title ya, Bu Titi. Prof. Titi has a lot of publications in curriculum, outcome-based curriculum, competency-based curriculum, and also a PhD from University of Dundee. I think, Bu Titi, will you share the screen by yourself or do we have to assist?
Will share by myself.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. So, okay, so I will give the opportunity to Dr. Titi.
Okay. Is my voice clear?
Yes, yes, Bu Titi.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for Famer Friendship who already organized this important meeting. I would like to discuss about the role of accreditation in social accountability of health profession education curricula. There are three aspects that I'm going to present in this opportunity. The first is principles of accreditation. The second is social accountability. The third is how accreditation could accelerate social accountability of medical school. The first is principles of accreditations. So I'm going to talk about what is the philosophy, the concepts, and principles of accreditation. First, the philosophy, which answer the questions why do we have accreditations, what is it for? The first is for public accountability. So every university, every medical school is held accountable to the public because they are established for the purpose of serving the public. So this is the first principle, which is very important, that is the public accountability. The second is access and quality. By accreditation, it is meant to ensure the externally the quality of medical school or medical educations or medical programs, and also to ensure access equally by different students from various backgrounds. The third is to build trust and credibility. So it is very important that a medical school implements what they promise. They implement what they are supposed to implement. And this can be checked or this can be validated through accreditations. So by having accreditation, it will build trust and credibility of a medical school. Next is about regulatory compliance. Of course, in some countries, accreditation is compulsory. It is a mandate from the law. It is a mandate from the government. So every medical school, every health profession education school, they have to undergo accreditation. If not, they are not recognized, or their graduates by implication will also not be recognized. To enhance performance, by having accreditations, health profession education institutions usually at the end will be given room for improvement or suggestions where they can improve their educations, or where they can improve their organizations or their curriculum, etc. Also, by having accreditations, it will open up more opportunities and more access, because they will, one of the criteria is they have collaborations with many parties, with many agencies. So it will open up opportunities. The next is the risk management. Accreditation can also be used to assess to what extent medical school or health profession education institutions mitigate, or they can identify the risk and how they mitigate the risk. And next is for benchmarking and global recognitions. Once you are accredited, international partners will have trust on you and will be recognized. It can also be used for benchmarking. Now the definition of accreditation, it is a long definitions from UNESCO 2021. The accreditation is the process by which a government or a non-government or a private body evaluates the quality of higher education institution as a whole or specific educational program. So by this definition, we can see that accreditation can focus on the program itself. So it is called program accreditation, or it can focus on the institution. It is called institutional accreditation, in order to formally recognize as having met certain predetermined minimal criteria or standard. So there are two key words here. The first is quality, the second is standard. And here it is quality is meant to have met certain predetermined or minimum criteria. Now the question is, what standards? Yeah, if accreditation means that you are recognized to have met certain predetermined standards or criteria, what standards? Who determine the standards? Now we look at the differences between manufacturing industry and health profession education. Here it is a computer manufacturer and also a car manufacturer. From here we can see that in the manufacturing industry, every computer must undergo the same process. Yeah, it is exactly the same. And every computer of its batch, they have exactly the same specification. It is very uniform. If the computer, or if there are one or two computers that are not meeting the specification, they will be rejected. It's considered not fulfilling the quality, not fulfilling the specifications. Also in the car manufacturing industry, you can see also each car will undergo the same process, exactly the same. Everything is the same. But now if we look at education, can we see education like this, like the manufacturing industry? Of course not, because in education, we are encountering living creatures. We are encountering students with various interests, various talents. They come from different backgrounds. They have their own uniqueness. So we cannot make that every student exactly follow the same path. Yeah, we cannot also, although it is, for example, two tutorial group discussions, we cannot ensure that these two tutorial discussions will experience the same minute by minute process. We cannot ensure that. Yeah. So this is the nature of education. And there is nothing wrong with this. Yeah. This is only the way we look at standard must be different from the way we look at standard in the manufacturing industry. Are they comparable? Of course not. Yeah. Therefore, in the in the manufacturing industry, we call the standard is rule-based standards. Yeah. For example, in the computer factory, if the specification is Intel Core i5, for example, then everything should have Intel Core i5, 10th generation, for example. It's a rule-based standard. Everything has to comply with detailed specifications. But in education, you cannot do that. You cannot ask each student you have to have the same uniforms. You have to have this. You have to wear the same shoes. You cannot do that. So in education, what we have is what we call principle-based standards. Yeah, WFME, World Federation for Medical Education, they have published since 2002 global standards, and the last revisions, that is the 2020-2023 revisions, they use what they call principle-based standards. What we mean by principle-based standard is it allows flexibility, it allows uh, differences, it allows innovations in each situations, in each classroom, in each school, depending on its context. Yeah. So this is an example of a principle-based standard. You know, so it's a statement of best practice. How every institution will meet this statement, it can vary. Yeah. So in principle-based standard, we are not aiming to compare one to the other, because every institution is different, is unique. They have their own context. Yeah, we cannot compare like apple to apple. Every university is different. So therefore, every medical school, every health education institution is judged according to its own context, its own vision and mission. And the second keyword in the definition of accreditation is quality. We can see here that even there are development of the quality definitions. In 1950, people think quality as complying with standard. And then in 1960, they see quality as fitness for use or fitness for purposes. In fact, this is now the definition that is used by many uh, government or many institution organization for higher education. So in higher education, quality means fitness for purpose or fitness for use. And then in 1970s, quality means cost efficiency. Although it fits for use, but if it is not efficient, it can not be having quality. And in 1980s, it is compliant with requirements and then meeting customer satisfaction. And then lastly now, not only customer satisfaction, but meeting the needs of all stakeholders. Like now everybody has to go green. We are thinking about sustainable development. We are thinking about sustainability, etc. So quality has a wider definition. An institution is not only satisfying their own customers, but they need to also satisfy the needs of stakeholders surrounding their institutions. So hence, if we look at the concept of social accountability, the latest definition of quality match with the concept of social accountability. Now we come into social accountability. In fact, it is a global effort. It started in 1995 when WHO issued a publication by Bullen and Hack entitled Defining and Measuring the Social Accountability of Medical Schools. And then 2006, WHO again published Working Together for Health to show that we cannot work alone in health professions in achieving the health developmental goals. Everybody needs to work together. And lastly, in 2010, there is global consensus for social accountability of medical schools. These documents can be downloaded from the internet. And it is defined, social accountability is the obligation of medical schools to direct their education, research, and service activities towards addressing the priority health concerns of the community, region, and or nation they have mandate to serve. Therefore, it is important that health professional education institution define what community, which region, which area they have a mandate to serve. One institution cannot serve the whole nation or cannot serve the whole universe. You have to define. And this is in fact why every institution they have vision mission, because they need to identify their stakeholders, their relevant stakeholders, and based on that, they define their vision and mission. And social accountability, uh, the health system is based on people's need, and there should be collaboration between policymakers, health administrators, health professionals, communities, and academic institutions. And also, we have challenges for health system that until now, there are high prevalence of chronic diseases, increasing uh, multi-professional interventions. We still face with poverty and less accessible of emerging high technology. Not only that, less accessibility for certain population to primary healthcare, leading to inefficiency and high cost for unnecessary and expensive care. We are also encountering very severe maldistribution of the health workforce. It happens everywhere, not only in Indonesia, but also in many countries. There is also inefficient sharing of tasks within the workforce, resulting in uneven coverage. The need also to engage the public in adopting healthier lifestyle, the necessity to act effectively on health determinants, as diverse as political, economic, social, education, and environments. So in this situation, how can accreditation could accelerate a medical school or a health professional education institution to be more socially accountable? Again, this has been a global effort. There is a publication by Bullen et al. That uh, entitled Accrediting Excellence for Medical Schools Impact on Population Health. So in this article, the authors argue that we need to change the way we look at what we mean by excellent medical school or excellent profession education school. Yeah, we do not only just see, for example, how sophisticated the simulation center, but we are looking more on the impact on population health. Another publication is by Bob Woolard and Charles Bullen on seeking impact of medical schools on health within the challenges of social accountability. Also, social accountability, the extra leap to excellent for education institution. So here, a number of experts already try to propose that the way we look at excellent, we look at, when we see whether a medical school or health professional education institution is excellent or very good, not from, the ratio of student staff or not from, the curriculum, but more on this, the capacity to identify current and future health needs and challenges of citizen and society as a whole, the capacity to adopt and the school's missions and programs to address those needs and challenges, and also the capacity to monitor the effects of relevant actions on identified needs and challenges. So the way we look at the quality for health professional education institution will not only rely on inputs or process, but more on the impact, not only on output, but also on the impact. And this is from Judith Eaton from CA is Council of Higher Education Agency in the US. She said there is a sobering and serious matter before the accreditation and academic communities, Congress, many policy and opinion leaders, and the public as represented through the press have clearly and forcefully indicated their lack of satisfaction with traditional accreditation and the role that it plays. So this is very deep critiques about the role of accreditations and whether it brings benefit or whether it gives, a good impact or not. Okay, so currently we don't know, to what extent health profession education institution, if they are accredited, it will bring improved health outcome. Yeah, at the moment there is no relationship. Yeah, because accreditation only look at in the inside of the health profession education. One criteria is about the alumni, but not about how institutions serve their population, how an institution can bring impact to the improvement of health. Therefore, we can see, for example, like in uh, West Nusa Tenggara, we have 5 medical schools there, but there are still high incidence of stunting, because it seems there is no relation. So social accountability try to bring this, try to get closer these two concept, the health profession education and the improved health. Therefore, we need new definitions of standard for health profession education. We need new way, new paradigm of accreditation of health profession education. We need also a new way of doing the self-evaluation, as well as the external evaluation in health profession education, as well as the evaluation framework in health profession education. So I will end my presentation here. So I don't have conclusion, but I have more questions of how we can develop new way of accreditation system for health profession education so that we can achieve the goal of social accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Titi, for the presentation. Now it's the time for the question and answer session. If there's anyone who has any question, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. You can also write down your question in the chat function of the meeting. Yes, for your information, Prof. Titi might not be able to join the session until the last presenter. So if you have any question, I suggest that you ask the question right away while our expert is still here.
Yeah. Or you can also write down, later I will
Yes.
answer. Yeah.
Yes, you can also
Yeah.
write down in the chat box.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So in essence, we need to reform our accreditation system. We need to rewrite our definitions of quality for health professional education institutions and also the standards. We need to include social accountability into the standards of health professional education institutions and also the
Yes,
way,
Bu Titi, probably
yeah,
just one question. Do you have any suggestion for any institution that would like to start considering putting the social accountability for their next accreditation? Do you have any suggestion?
yeah, in Indonesia especially, we try to incorporate social accountability concepts in our medical education law, the draft of medical education law, but it is too highly political that the law is now not approved. Yeah, so new law come up. That is the health law. But in fact, we try to insert social accountability in the division of medical education law, so that there is a mandate for each medical school to embrace social accountability concepts. But this law is not approved by the parliament and the government. And now we try to, through this webinar, we try to call for actions. Maybe there are some participants who are engaged in accreditation. So we can propose to our accreditation agencies to also include the social accountability concepts or idea as one criteria. Yeah, this is how we try to
Yes.
promote the social accountability. Thank you.
Take a little long road, but still
Yes,
on the
yes,
same
yes,
destination, ya, Bu Titi, ya.
yes. Although later on maybe Nick will explain that the tools are already, a number of, there is the global task force who try to operationalize the concept of social accountability into more workable criteria, and it can be measured. Yeah, but we'll see. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Titi. Now, since that we already mentioned something about the assessment tool, I would like to once again say thank you to Prof. Titi, and I would like to call for our next speaker, our second speaker. Yeah, I can see here that, okay, Nick is ready. Yes. Mbak Rani, please introduction slide-nya, please.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, I would like to briefly introduce you, but I believe that this cannot summarize Nick's vast experience, but I just would like to highlight that at the moment, Nick is the president or executive director of the network TUF, that's been working with UGM for quite some time as well. And his topic will be about the assessment tool. Yes. Okay, so I will give the time for you now, Nick, please.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for inviting me to, oops, let me just make sure I'm sharing the right screen. There. Well, thank you for inviting me to this, and it's a great partnership that we've been developing with UGM. I'm Nicholas Torres, and I'm the executive director, or we're shifting. So I'm actually the president of TUF International and executive director of TUF United States of America, as I'm based in the United States. But TUF is we're a non-state actor in official relations with the World Health Organization. We're international, intersectorial, intergenerational. Our goal and mission is really about improving health locally and globally, and we do this through partnerships, such as the partnership with UGM. But I'm gonna really focus. I'm not gonna give you too much history about TUF, because this is really about social accountability and how we move this through there. So we are the group. There's on the international framework, there's 3 groups. There's an international steering committee that's really driving this, and I call it a movement, because it is a movement that we're trying to do for institutions to respond to people and society's needs. You heard a little bit from TT about, ultimately what is it that we're trying to do, which is the school outcomes and societal impact we want. But it is a movement. But within this global movement, there's 3 groups. One is a focus on what are the international standards of social accountability. How do we influence accreditation agencies that you heard TT talk about to incorporate interprofessional standards into the accreditation? And then we represent the capacity building. So we're the capacity building effort to ensure that the institutions across the globe have the right tools to do that. So it is really this global movement that we're part of, and we represent one of the 3 arms to do that. But it's, as TT said, this started with WHO. So it's really about 3 decades of international interest, reflection, and action about that. And we're now, the idea of social accountability has now been shifted from an idea to actually practical implications. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is how do we give institutions the practical assessment so they can start this journey of being socially accountable. More important than the actual assessment or the baseline is the plans of action that each institution can develop a plan that then helps them move forward towards this. It will also help them in their accreditation process, but that's really this idea. And what we have, TT explained a little bit about that, is the tool has a history itself. So this tool was started back there, but if you see, this is a key thing, the global consensus for social accountability of medical schools. That was sort of the catalyst for the development of this tool, which was then developed in 2016. And it was hosted by the Pan American Health Organization. The Pan American Health Organization, it represents the North and Latin America or South American region of the World Health Organization. It was actually started back in 1906, way before the World Health Organization, but they, in a sense, they held the tool and then they turned it over to the Network Towards Unity for Health for implementation. And we've held it in our organization since about 2020. But what is it? So it's really about a practical tool that will give institutions the guide for it. But it's 6 core components. It has 11 themes. It has phases, and ultimately has 47 indicators. These 47 indicators, some of which are based in some accreditation agencies and some of which now. But the dimensions are really focused on the students, the faculty, the curriculum, the research, the governance, and ultimately the social impact of what we're trying to do. So I'm going to play a little video from my colleague who kind of explains what it is. Let me see if it actually works. If not, I'll share a different screen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aricia de Kempeneer. I am the Operations and Programming Director of the Network Towards Unity for Health. I'm here to tell you more about ISAT. ISAT is the Institutional Self-Assessment Social Accountability Tool. ISAT helps institutions become more socially accountable towards the public and the people they serve. By completing ISAT, an institution develops a baseline assessment of their readiness towards social accountability and position themselves to meet the standards of social accountability for accreditation. The process of completing ISAT engages all stakeholders at the institution to reflect on where the institution is in each domain that is being looked at and see where there is room for improvement towards social accountability. The value of ISAT is in the journey, not the destination. Each institution that decides to complete ISAT will be supported by the Network Towards Unity for Health and their Oversight Committee that consists of individuals that are key stakeholders and experts in social accountability. Let's hear what the Oversight Committee and institutions that have completed ISAT have to say.
Hi, everyone. Do you know what impact your institution or educational program is having on health in communities? Do the graduates that come out of your program have the competencies they need to meet evolving needs, particularly of marginalized communities? Is it contributing to health equity or just maintaining the status quo? If you want to find out, actually apply to join the ISAT verification process. My name is Björk Paulsdottir. I'm the CEO of the Training for Health Equity Network, which is a community of practice of socially accountable health professions education institutions. And we participated in developing both the tool and the process. And we hope you join us to improve health in communities everywhere.
We applied for ISAT assessment in 2021 to evaluate how our institution has been aligned with the social accountability mission. We want to see how our education, research, and services are responsive to the community needs. The assessment was a learning process for us. Our team actually found social accountability initiatives that were not well documented, but are now identified when completing the application. The feedback from the Oversight Committee was insightful and constructive, meaning to advance forward our institution's role toward the community needs.
Furthermore, ISAT has been a motivator of our social accountability mission. Using ISAT, Our institution has successfully proven our social mission and recognition in national and international accreditations. Moreover, our institution finally received recognition from the Emmy Aspire Merit Award for Social Accountability in 2023, 2 years after progressing from the ISET assessment. We believe that ISET assessment is not only providing one-off advantages, but also long-term advances toward our institution and community.
I hope this video has interested you in
Let me figure out how to move to the next slide. So that gives you a little sense of like what it is, but let me dive a little bit details for this. So part of this is making sure that we're driven by experts in the region or the globe for that. So you heard from Bjorg from the net on the right. We also, the Social Mission Alliance, although they're based in the United States and they developed it really driving medical schools to think differently about being responsive, they're here. And then of course we got the global consensus for social accountability. But the operations of this is really the network, and we're partnered with the Northern Ontario School of Medicine in Canada for this. And if you know anything about Canada, they are one of the countries that have fully incorporated social accountability standards into their accreditation standards. But so here we have this tool. And again, as TT mentioned, it is a very practical tool to help an institution find its journey, because what it does is it measures different components. So as you apply for it, the institution has to, it's more about the journey. You have to assemble the right people, and then it basically given a narrative, you select what phase you are in based upon a descriptor. But it does measure it for students, faculty on the recruitment development side of it. It hits the curriculum side of it, from the content, the learning methods, the types, the research, the governance structure, the partnership that you engage in with. And then I think at the end of the day, as TT said, it's really hard to figure out the school outcomes of society impact. But the tool asks the institutions to determine where they are as a starting point, and then the tool then asks them to say, and what would be your action steps to move to the next phase? That is probably the second most important part. The first important part is like, who did you assemble? So you have to have students and faculty and leadership and community representatives as part of this process. And then the second part is really defining is like, and if you do this, what will change for your school outcomes and societal impact, and how will you know you're successful for that? So taking a little bit deep diver into it, right? It's like looking at, under each core component, the institution selects is like, which phase are they in? And again, TUF is recognizing the efforts and the journey for that. It is not about trying to reach phase 4. It is about that you are working towards those particular goals as you try to achieve that. This is an example of what the tool looks like. So again, you've got your conventional one is saying, all right, this may be where you start, but setting really the North Star of where you want to go, right? So for the curriculum, right, it says, here's the standard, and then here's indicators that you would actually reach those particular standards. So again, there's, under each one, the institution selects where they think they describe where they are. And then more importantly, as I said before, then they have to put an action plan to say like how they're going to move that to the next level. So, this is, as I said, the most important part is like the engagement, who you select to be part of that. We really encourage students and faculty and community. Then it goes into the phase selection, and then this looks like what the plan of action is. And it's like a narrative description. It was like, what will you do in the next 1, 2, or 3 years to move to that next phase? So in the pilot stage about 3 years ago, we had 10 institutions across the globe go through this process. The goal for this is to encourage the movement is that we don't need all medical or health profession education institutions to do this. But if we capture 15% of those within a country, then the others will follow suit and say this is also important to us. So our theory is based upon a theory of diffusion of innovation, is saying we need to capture 15 to 20% of that mark, and then the rest of the universities will follow suit. But as you look here, like UGM is one of those leaders, and we have other leaders across the globe who are leading this movement. And this is kind of what it looks like. So this is the one in Mexico where they basically said, in a very robust process, they said, we are, in some cases they're in phase 1, in some cases phase 2, and in some cases they're phase 3. But ultimately, again, it's not the destination, it's the journey, because there's always room for improvement. And that's where, when we look at this down below, is to say, you know, are the improvement action plans concrete? Did they engage the right stakeholders? And when the process of the organization. So in a sense, it's kind of an internal report card in terms of how are you doing for that. But we do have an oversight committee, both in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. That also can be, we also be working, it's like if other languages need to be incorporated, they could also do that. So when we look at, you know, part of this is how do we get other institutions to be on board for this? So this last year we launched a fellowship for deans and vice deans or leaders within institutions to say, key to this, if the leadership needs to buy into this, if it's going to happen, if you're going to see behavioral change. So we operated a fellowship this year. We had 16 institutions or deans and vice deans or directors across the globe come together, and they basically went through this process of what is the concept and theory of social accountability. But ultimately, you know, it was like module 2 is like, did they engage the right community? Then we also said, how do they engage with accreditation agencies? We're doing a presentation where half of them are presenting how they're going to work with and partner with ministers of health and accreditation agencies. And then the last one is really about internal, like their own leadership and how they're going to make internal change for that. But it's really bringing this fellowship to guide them through this process. But, you know, part of the tool is we also limited also because this is about health promotion education or interprofessional education. So I wanted to kind of take a step back and say where the tool is evolving. So we have these standards for social accountability, but there's also a big push within it that interprofessional education and collaborative care. So when we take this, ultimately, it's part of like, how do we interact with this health system? So here's our population, and we sit on this side because we're training the future medical doctors and nurses of the world, whatever, but we've got this interchange for them. So part of social accountability on the curriculum side is like, what curriculum are we trying to do? And does it have the impact on the health systems that we want to do? So, you know, and so what we're doing is we're going to take the ISAT tool and we're going to incorporate interprofessional education standards into it as a next level of being socially accountable, because ultimately it is about the school outcomes and the societal impact. This is really about the societal impact. Is like, does the education you give the future medical and nursing students, you know, result in impact at the community level? And that's what we're trying to answer. So I wanted to run through a little bit of this. These have not been incorporated, but pulling from some of the literature, this is like a version 2 and how they've been adapted into 2023. But when we look at interprofessional educations, they're framed under values and ethics, roles and responsibilities, communication, and teams and teamwork, which are basically part of this process of being socially accountable. So when we look at values and ethics, right, you can look at some of the core competence statements. It's about working with a team member to maintain a climate of shared values, ethical conduct, and mutual respect. This is part of the process, right? You cannot be successful of making sure an individual is healthy, nor a community is healthy or a family is healthy without the other team members for that. And so this is really providing, here's different values or different standards that would be part of this values and ethics. And you can see that I just wanted to show you the evolution from where it's gone from 2016, which ultimately is the same year that social accountability tool was launched, to where we are in version 3, which is in 2023. The next one is really about roles and responsibilities. So it's really looking at version 3 is like, what are those roles and responsibilities? Again, it's really the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of team members, person-centered care, team members' role, health outcomes, collaborate with others towards health outcomes. So again, these would be a version, or we'd probably call it the ISAT 3.0, because it breaches outside of social accountability and interprofessional education. The third standard for interprofessional education and collaborative care is communication. Huge component, if you think about it, is like, how do all the health team members work together for person-centered care? And so these would be the next level for that. And then the last one is teams and teamwork in terms of what we're looking for. So I wanted to pull this last thing. So this is one of the tools, because it's within one of the standards is faculty development. So in one sense, we're talking about faculty development here, and I wanted to pull this out. So in phase 4, the institution would identify, they may not be at phase 4, but let's shoot for phase 4. And again, remember, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But what we should be shooting for is that the institution is assessing faculty performance and community engagement, provides faculty development programs aligned with the goals of socially accountable health professional education, including active, student-centered, and community-based learning. So when we look at some of the 9 indicators for this, is like, have faculty, so this session, for example, have completed clinical skills training relevant to the identified priority healthcare needs of your community. Does faculty complete the professional development of engagement of community in that process? Faculty are engaged in social accountability aligned education, research, and service, meaning that they can take their curriculum and they should be framing it within this idea that ultimately, what are you trying to do is you're trying to, align it with the community you're trying to serve. And so that should be based in research, but also to say is like, why did you enter this profession in the first place? To have impact in people's lives. Then we look at the local workforce, meaning like, where did the workforce decide to go, and why would they choose those different things? There's a portion of saying there's underserved areas, right? Tough also says we have 6 populations who oftentimes exist on the fringe of society, and we should be driving primary care physicians into these areas to make sure that they're healthy and their communities are healthy. Again, you see the theme of 6 of quality of teaching, community engagement, best practices. It is about society's health needs, and then part of it is to say, when you recruit your students or your faculty, it's part of the recruitment process. You want to have those faculty who believe what you believe in, and then we bring that to sort of awareness for that. So that's an oversight of the social accountability. If you go to the network towards Unity for Health, you can definitely find our website. It links to the Social Accountability Institutional Assessment. We're in the process now where we've piloted it, we've translated into many languages, many institutions are applying, and then we hope that that we're starting this movement. Is we've started with 10, we're expanding to 50, and then through our centers of excellence, we expect that, and UGM might be one of those institutions who then represent Indonesia. We're going to have a 10-fold expansion of like having hundreds and potentially eventually, thousands of universities who say, we too believe in this movement and are expanding it. So thank you again for the opportunity to present. And I know Tama is going next, so I enjoyed presenting the video of Tama talking about UGM's journey. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Nick. Yeah, I also enjoyed Tama's video. Thank you very much for the extensive presentation about ISET. I believe the participants here is familiar with a little bit or a lot with ISET. If you have any questions that you want to ask, if you would like to ask, we have the expert here. Probably you want to bring it into your context. And translate how do you enter each phases or moving from the phase 1 to the next phases, etc. Saya persilahkan kepada para peserta jika ada pertanyaan yang akan disampaikan, boleh raise hand atau dibuka mikrofonnya juga boleh, atau ditulis di chat juga boleh.
So was that a question of how you move to the phases?
Yeah, actually it's a question from Mas
Okay.
Niari Novita. So it mentioned that at the moment her institution is already having a community service and also MPKM apa ya? Lupa kepanjangannya.
Okay.
Yeah,
Freestyle. Freestyle education for the student.
Oh, yes, right. And according to that phase, we are where are we and what kind of improvement that we need to do? We have the community service. but just that. Yes.
Okay. So the way this works, and I'm going to put the link to the ISAT tool itself, so that everybody has it front and centered. And let me just put that in the chat box. Is that when you apply, it is supposed to be a self-driven guide, right? We don't have the answers for that particular question because every institution operates within its own social political context and its own environment. But we do, versus just kind of giving you a baseline. So when you finish the tools, you will actually walk through each phase and you'll decide as a group like where you stand. But then you have to make that decision of like, what do you need to do to achieve the next phase? The next phase is actually outlined for you, right? To say it's kind of like you need to shoot for phase 4, but what will you do to achieve those different things? We can't answer that question for you. You have to answer that question for yourselves within the context of Indonesia and your countries there. But you do have to answer the question in terms of what are concrete steps you will do to achieve that. So you're holding yourself in a sense accountable to that. What we will do is once you finish that application, we will assemble a global group of experts to receive your application, also rate yourselves based upon your application, and then do a comparison to guide you, say is like, here's some additional considerations you may want to consider from a global context. But, you know, we strongly believe this is a self-assessment. The journey, your journey, that you have to be motivated to be socially accountable. We cannot tell you what those actions are. You have to tell yourselves what those actions are, because ultimately the only people that are going to hold yourselves accountable are yourselves. You know, at the end of the day, we're also pushing to incorporate these into accreditation agencies, but that's not the point. It's not if you've heard the expression, the stick or the carrot. The stick is like, we force you to do it. The carrot is like, you're motivated to do it on your own. We're betting on the fact that you're motivated, that you want to make sure your institution is responding to the people in society you need, and you want to have social impact. Therefore, you're going to do this on your own, and you're going to put together a robust plan to achieve those and move to the next level.
Thank you very much, Nick. So probably Bu Masnia Rinovita, you can try to fill in the link and do a self-reflection probably, Nick, to assess where they are, the institution be at the moment, and what kind of local context that you can bring to answer all those steps that you needed to go to the next phase. I think that's about summarizing. Is there any more question? Thank you for the response, Nick.
Sure. And I would say, for just one additional thing, for Indonesia as a whole, right? We are currently establishing a center of excellence, or collaborating center of excellence. It could be UGM, but who would basically be a tough chapter for Indonesia, and then Indonesia would then have its own tough network to provide capacity and support to all the medical and nursing schools within the country of Indonesia, and work with accreditation agencies and ministries of health, because we can't do that from a global, but you could do it very local, right? So we want to basically replicate and license all these tools so that Indonesia can actually operate it for Indonesia, and then come back to the world and teach the rest of the countries across the world of how what added Indonesia do and what did you learn.
Yes. Prof. Tite is working hard to push us into the CE, so wish us luck as well, Nick. Yes. Okay, so thank you very much, Nick, for the presentation and also the discussion. We will have another discussion at the end of the session, but at the moment I would like to invite our next speaker. Our third speaker for today would be Dr. Pratama Santoso Utomo. Okay, he's currently not here in Indonesia, as you are all well aware. He is the member of the curriculum committee in UGM's medical school. He's also involved a lot in the ISAT and also the TUF. So Dr. Tama would talk about the scope of the social accountability for HPE. Okay, so I will give the floor to Dr. Tama, please.
Thank you, Dr. Novi. Let me share my screen. Oops. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you're clear.
Okay, thank you very much. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's good evening is only for Nick, actually, I think. Yeah, for all of the participants, thank you very much for Friendship to invite me to share about social accountability, which is actually my research interest in my PhD. So after Professor Titi and Nick explains about accreditation and tools on assessing social accountability of health profession education, I will try to see from the micro lens, from the practical lens of social accountability on how we can apply social accountability from curricular level or from student level and also from other more micro level of this application. And of course, social accountability resources are available in TUF. TUF is one of the institutions that's concerned in social accountability across the globe. And we believe that is very important. So for this presentation, we'll discuss a bit about the introduction and definition of social accountability. I think it will not be that long because Prof. Titi and Nick already explained this completely. Why social accountability health profession education is important, and also the scope of socially accountable health profession education. I will be using a case study to explain this to make it easier for us to understand how. So we have this metaphor when a university is called as an ivory tower. In bahasa Indonesia, we call it universitas adalah menara gading, an ivory tower. So what is an ivory tower? If you look at the dictionary, ivory tower is to describe something in a derogatory way, it's a negative way, insulated, separated, having their own life. And this expression is mostly often used in academia, university and academia, higher education, health profession education. Our institutions are mostly academia. And this is giving an example. Sitting in the ivory tower could care less about condition of worker. Maybe this is something what happened now because we are currently lecturers, staffs, members of a university or a higher education institution of health professions education, currently sitting in our seat, in our room, teaching health sciences, doing research in health sciences, and even doing community service and health sciences, but we are not actually listening the community. We are actually have this distance with the community. This is something what we call ivory tower. If I want to make a comparison for those who are following the Lord of the Rings, it's almost like the Sauron's Eye Tower, where it's very big, it's very intimidating, and it can see you. And when you see the eye of Sauron, you might be frozen, you might be attacked, and you might be stressed, you might be dead, something like that. It's very stressful. So maybe currently our institution, our community, seeing universities and health profession education institution like this one, because from many surveys, they say that what's the importance of university? In the US, they also have this, that there has been movement that why we need university, something like that. Those are some examples, because only less than 10% of the world population actually having university degree or having experience on studying in the university. So 90% of the world population actually have no experience in university. That's why we have to be careful with this one, being distant to our community. Why? Because those are the conditions of our higher education institution. So when we look at the first generation universities, we are focusing only on education, defending the truth and being professional we are focusing only on producing the science or teaching the science. When we are growing to the second and third generation of universities in the earlier days, they are more thinking about research. Now we always say we are a research university. Research university could be a second generation university that only think about teaching and research. The third generation university grows and think about your education, research, and exploitation of knowledge to make sure that we are having the end stream of research which actually benefiting the community. And now we are aiming for the fourth generation of universities, which actually thinking more post-modernistic about science. We're thinking more multidisciplinary involvement. And we are thinking more about the local economic development and local health development. Not only thinking about how we produce scientists, but also how actually local expert and local health being the concern of our healthcare education. So that's why actually we require social accountability as discussed by Professor Titi and Nick before. So social accountability health profession education started in 1995. This is something that already discussed with Prof. Titi. And the global consensus of social accountability actually specify WHO's definition on social accountability to always that education should be responsive to the societal priority health needs. This is why to be socially accountable, we cannot have same health profession education for same areas, for all areas, or for our country. Even in Indonesia, for example, the pattern of diseases in Java is different with pattern of diseases in Papua or in Sumatra. So that's why we cannot have the same curriculum. We cannot have the same standard, right? We do have national standard, but this is the minimum standard. We do need to have our local standard to make sure that our local needs actually being sufficiently addressed, and we are actually training our healthcare professionals to be ready to solve local problems, not only solving Java problem of diseases in Java, for example. So this is why we need to make sure the part of social accountability education is actually thinking about the disparity of healthcare. So why we need social accountability? I'm sorry. So there are several reasons why we should have social accountability. First, we know that currently we have global health inequalities and inequities in relation to health demand. This is the health challenges of today. For example, we understand that there is disparity of healthcare in rural and urban areas, not only in Indonesia, also in other countries. Even in the US, we are facing that problem. In Australia, in Japan, and in Asian countries, and in India, we also have that problem. In Canada, in Europe, they also have this problem, disparity of healthcare professionals, not only physicians, but healthcare professionals in urban and also in rural areas. In Indonesia, we also have remote areas, which is actually having some healthcare districts do not have doctors, might only have one part-time nurse or something like that, which is actually very detrimental for the healthcare of the society in that areas. And we understand that healthcare population institutions should operate to achieve needs of the community they serve. This is what they call fit for purpose that has been discussed by Professor Titi before, to make sure that our education actually relates with the purpose of our community. So UGM has our vision. So this is how our medical education should actually serve the vision of UGM. So other university might have different vision. So the purpose of your education, that university education, should relate to the vision of that university and purpose to serve the community around the university, something like that. That's why we cannot have the same standard. And then the role and mission of current higher education is actually important because social accountability will provide direction for education, research, and service in higher education institutions. So We will discuss about this later on in the example. And also, if we have good social accountability, we can position ourselves to meet social accountability standards for accreditation and also global recognition. So we now have global recognition in social accountability. Our national accreditation standard actually also have many social accountability standards in it, the LAMPETECUS and other accreditation. Actually, they have some implemented and also embedded some of the social accountability aspects. So this is what we call the pentagram partnership of social accountability. Prof. Titi already discussed about this. So really the central mission of our education, service, and research should be based on the health system, and should be based on the community needs, should be based on the population that we serve. And actually the community themselves, we can see the 5 angles. Those corners actually the partners for the health system. So as an academic institution, we are part of them. We are not the center, but we are actually one of the corner. The community themselves actually in the equal sitting with us academic institution. So do the health administrators, policymakers, and also health professionals in clinical care. So all of us actually having the same sitting and the same level and same distribution of responsibility to ensure that our health system actually based on the people need. So we are not only asking about the communities. Communities actually should play an active role too to ensure the health system actually relevant to their needs too. And our education, community service, and research, we call it in Indonesia Tridharma. I don't know, maybe in India you have different explanation about those activities of universities. Should also think about those 5 stakeholders and also should center everything to the health system based on the people needs. Although, yeah, we are not only doing 3 dharma, but also maybe there are other dharma to an administration. We are also doing that sister BKD thing. Yeah, that's a different story. So to see how we implement social accountability, to see how actually social accountability has in scope, maybe it's good to have a case discussion here. So this is based on what I found in WHO report in 2018, because almost 50% of world population lives in rural area. I think this is also applied for Indonesia based on my research. So in figure 1, we can see the percentage that of global population not covered by legal healthcare. So rural areas having more than 50% non-covered healthcare services. Urban areas has less, 20-something%. So urban areas also not have, some of urban areas also not having the same, not having sufficient healthcare coverage too. But we can see that the number of the is double. And then in figure 2, we can see that global estimates of skilled health worker deficit actually also double in rural areas. In rural area, we have almost 7 million deficit, and the urban area we have around 3 million deficit. So when we see this happen, actually, how we can ensure that our social accountable health profession education respond to the pertinent problem or to this problem. So let's think several seconds about this one. If you have any thoughts, how should we proceed with this? You can share it in the chat function and we can discuss it later while we're progressing. I hope you can think one or two options that what you want to do to approach this problem. And you can share in the chat function if you are willing to and you are not you're okay with that. I will try to see from the Tridharma, Indonesian Tridharma approach, which is the education or teaching, research, and also the community service. How we can do as a healthcare education institution or healthcare profession educators to approach this problem. So, sorry, educationally, for example, we can see from our students, of course, students are our main stakeholder of education. They are our customers when you're saying education as a business. So we should ask, who was admitted in our program? How were they selected? Was the selection approach fair enough? Do students from rural areas where need more actually healthcare professionals actually having more access? How do we support them? Because we know that rural areas usually having less financial power compared to those who are coming from the urban areas. Do we have spatial tracking for them, spatial admission track for them? Do we actually provide scholarship for them? This is really a question that we need to think. Is our institution has provide those answer actually to seek answer to the rural urban healthcare disparity? And then we can now see ourselves as faculty or as lecturers or staff of our health profession education. Who was hired in this university or in our setting? If we want to serve more in rural areas, logically we should also invite and having proportional recruitment of faculty from rural areas or from remote areas. How do we support them? How should we provide faculty development, as Nick mentioned before? How do we provide education, like tugas belajar or something, or tupel or something otherwise? Do we have any scholarships for their faculty development or for their education later on, right? Are we actually also accepting community members as part of faculty? Because we want our students to later serve in the rural areas. They will serve the community members. Will the community members actually part of the faculty? Can be part-time faculty or clinical faculty. This is something that we can think about. Curricular-based. Should it be conventional or problem-based? Right. This is more theoretical. Should it be classroom-based or more community-based or community-oriented? Should it be more non-professional or interprofessional? So this is something that we must question and we must check in our curriculum. What's involved in the curriculum development? Usually, most curriculum development are made by the higher leadership of the school. Do we actually involve community members from rural areas, for example, in this example, to also hear their thoughts about the importance of the needs of the healthcare? Maybe they have different problems with the national standard of medical education or national standard of diseases, something like that. We are hearing them we can involve them actually in curriculum development. Now, we done with education. Now we start with research. So how our idea of research come? Is it the community initiated? Is it actually community oriented? Or it's purely based from our expertise? As a health profession education expert, then I want to do something about communication skill in the community. So I'll bring this to my community and then ask them something and return back, right? Is it really based on the community needs? So who is involved in the research? Is it only ourselves and the team of the university? How about the involvement of the community member? Are there subjects only? Are there actually participants that actually involved? Or they are actually also co-investigator of our research, right? Because if we are doing research with community, why we are not asking them part of our investigators? So we can do what we call participatory action research with community. How is the research funded? Is it actually only by the university or by the sponsors, or actually part of the community providing some funding too, so that we can share the responsibility? Who benefit the research? Is it intersectional? Intersectional means the community get most of the benefit, or is it imperialistic? Imperialistic means we are like imperialists. As a researcher, we come to the community, we take data, bring the data back to university and publish it, and not returning anything to the community. This is something that's concerning for social accountable research in healthcare. Now come to the service. Service is very easy for us healthcare professionals. So, but the questions are actually the decision. Who to decide? We had the question before during this presentation about community service. The question I would to have is actually, is who decide the topic of the community service, of the pengabdian masyarakat? Is it the community or our institution? Or is it a collaboration process? This is an example. To be social accountable, the need of service should be defined by the community themselves altogether and supported by the higher education institution. Is the community only the subject or the victim, or they are the initiator? Because we are sometimes doing community service for victims, right? Or subjects, or they're actually also the initiator. How about the mission? Is it school-based or community is it initiated? The partnership, is it bipartite, only community and the university, or is it actually multi-partite as shown in social accountability pentagram? Like we have healthcare professionals, we have community members, we have academic institutions, we have health officers, we have officials, etc. How about the funding of our services? Is it a donation? Is it we are only giving something? Or is it actually empowerment? We are training community to be empowered. Is this better than only giving donation? How about the sustainability? Is it only one-off service, an occasional service, or actually a long-term service? So it's better to have like one village or one area with better sustainability and long connection with the university. We hear their needs, we evaluate various time to be aligned with their needs, compared to doing one-off bakti social or health service, physical examination or eye examination once a year, something like that. That might not be helpful compared to those long-term relationship with the community that we need to serve. So based on those three aspects, actually we can see that the scope of social accountable health profession education is multifaceted. We have student, faculty, the governance team, and the management actually should take part. The community involvement, the research process should be also social accountable, not only the needs of the faculty or the school. The societal impact and also the school outcome should be initiated. So, however, we need to actually measure them to make sure that all of those facets actually amalgamated and actually having good quality and actually providing impact to the community. So we need to measure them. One of the approach to measure them actually using ISET that Nick presented before. In that standard, actually they have the list what kind of quality or what kind of aptitudes that showing student selection is actually socially accountable. That our research actually socially accountable. Those are some examples of the scope of social accountability health profession education. So I think being social accountable means we want to collaborate with the community, we want to collaborate with the other stakeholders. So we are not the center of the world, we are part of the corner, we are one of the 5 corners. So we want to put the puzzle together to make sure that we have better collaboration, we have accountability to our healthcare, we have accountability to our population. And we hope that with social accountability, we can demolish the rumor, the myth that university is actually an ivory tower. Thank you very much. I think that's all for my presentation. Those are some references. The community later, I think they can share my slides to all of the participants. Thank you very much. Social accountability really depends on the winning heart and mind. It's not enough to just have good policy, but we have to convince people to actually implement it. And usually convincing people is actually needing astute of political and also theoretical skills. Thank you very much, and I'm taking question. Return to Dr. Novi.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tama, for the extensive presentation of the Sauron Ice Tower. Yes. Yeah. So there's a question about the materials, and Thomas already answering that all of the materials will be given by the administrator later, Bu Eni. So I invite you all now to ask about Thomas' presentation. If you have any question directed to Dr. Tama or also to other presenters. You can use whatever language you're comfortable with Bahasa Indonesia is okay as well. But if you want to use Indian language, I think I will need a translator. Yeah, so I invite question. Okay, do we have any question in the chat box? Let me check. Oh, from it was nice hearing to all the speakers. Yes, thank you very much. That waken us up. That probably we already have actually our institution some parameters of social accountability. However, it was not yet structured, or we are not yet motivated enough to go toward the next step for social accountability. So all of these three speakers today are motivating us to go forward from where we are right now. Okay. Is there any more question?
We have
Okay, there's a
question.
question. Yes, I think it is directed to Dr. Tama. Do you want to open your microphone? Silakan dibuka mikrofonnya untuk ditanyakan langsung saja. Monggo.
Ya, maaf nggak pakai bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa. Maaf saya nggak open.
Monggo, gak apa-apa Bu. Iya.
Baik, maaf saya tadi kurang fokus dok, yang waktu Dokter Tama menjelaskan yang tadi yang terakhir dengan tanda tanya bahwa tentang kerjasama dok, apakah memang maaf saya kurang bisa, social accountable ini bisa lebih ditingkatkan dengan kerjasama antar institusi seperti itu dok? Terima kasih.
Makasih. Saya jawab bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris?
Inggris aja dok, nggak apa-apa.
Oke, Bu Mas ini saya izin jawab dalam bahasa Inggris. The question is actually, can we improve social accountability by having like collaboration with other institutions? The answer is actually yes, because as we can see in the pentagram of social accountability, there are 5 corners and there are actually different institutions. If we have those collaborations and we ensure more collaboration with multi-party collaboration, actually will be better for the accountability, because this is something that not only decided by ourselves, but this is decided by the needs of those stakeholders. And if we have several stakeholders thinking about healthcare, it means that they're trying to make sure that healthcare actually relevant to the needs of the community. But please don't forget, if you have those conversations with your sponsor, for example, but also ask the community members, what do they need? Are they really needing those innovation or those research? Apakah mereka membutuhkan betul bantuan tersebut, right? Because sometimes we assume someone needs this research, or we assume that someone needs this service, but they are actually not needing that. They might need something otherwise that we don't know. So don't forget to make sure that we are actually involving the community and population in our decision, in everything, including creating curriculum. Just like what Bu Titi said. Semoga bisa menjawab. Terima kasih.
Yuk dok.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Tama, for the explanation. I would like now to also invite Nicholas Torres and Prof. Titi, if you're still joining us, to also join the discussion. Yes, is there any more question from the participants? You can open the microphone or raise your hand. Yes. Okay, so I guess I would like to invite the final remarks from our two speakers that are still joining us today to wrap up our session for this morning about social accountability. What an important message do you have for us as personal, as faculty, and also as an institution related to the socially accountable health professions educations? I invite Nick to go first. Please, Nick.
Sure. I think the primary message is that it's essential that you're, from an institutional level or organizational perspective, that you start this journey. Tough has provided a very practical tool, so to translate the concept or the theory into the very practical. So all you have to do is your institution just needs to go through the process for that, and at least you start that journey. And you don't have to. It's not about getting it perfect the first time. It's about beginning the journey, because we all need to be on this process. As faculty and students, right, you can reinforce these concepts, but ultimately it's about the institution that says that we're going to move this forward towards that. And then specifically, I think for each country, right, Indonesia as a whole, there's certain institutions that you as institutions, whether it be Universidad Gadjah Mada or other institutions, you need to lead this process, because not everybody has bought into this idea that we of social accountability, but you can lead it for your nation. So, within institutions, there's those of us who follow and those of us who lead. And I would say make the decision to lead, because this is very important. If we want global health and healthy individuals and communities, we have to go beyond what our institutional response is to do, and we have to influence accreditation, but we also have to lead by example to get other institutions to follow us.
Thank you very much, Dick. That is very encouraging for us to give our colors to the accreditation system in our nation. Okay, now I would like to invite Dr. Tama, please.
Okay, I think from a micro level, being social accountable can start from ourselves, not always thinking about the macro level, but it really depends on the level of power that we have. If you are a dean or even a chancellor or rector, maybe you can have more you can have more influence on multiple factors. But if we are a lecturer, we can also start being socially accountable by thinking on those aspects that Nick already explained, the 6 indicators, when we are designing our 3 Dharma activities, so teaching, for research, or for community services. We can make sure that we are actually involving communities and involving the needs of the communities, so that we are not actually creating an ivory tower for our institution to be distant with the community, while actually paving the way to become a social accountable institution. And later on, I believe by starting small with ourselves, we can actually become a social accountable institution, and having those ISAT assessment by ourselves. Of course, UGM already completed the ISAT assessment 2021, I think, right, Nick, if I'm not mistaken. And that could be, we can provide support and examples for that. And you can visit TUF webpage if you want to see the resources and also the tools related to social accountability. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Tama, and also Nick. I hope that this session today, this morning, if you aren't familiar yet with the ISAT tool, I hope this session gives you an introduction or overview. And if you are already about to fill in the tool, Ling already shared the tool in the chat box. And if you are ready to complete all of the assessment, as Dr. Tama said, we can also discuss it if furthermore after this session if you still have any further question. So I guess this concludes our meeting this morning, our session this morning. I hope that this will be a fruitful session for all of us. Thank you very much for joining us. I know it's probably a little bit late now in your place, Nick and Tama. It's just starting of the day for all of us in Indonesia, but probably also an afternoon for other participants in other countries. So thank you very much for your participation. Mbak Rani, apa ada sesi foto ini nanti untuk penutupnya? Shall we take pictures? Yes. Okay. So everybody, if you could please open your camera for the pictures, that would be, yeah. Yeah, probably you can remove the pin first. Otherwise, you're only going to capture 3 of.
Okay, for page 1, 3, 2, 1. Page 2. Page 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice day, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you very much
Thank you,
for
Nick.
our presenters. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Tama.
Thank
See
you,
you again.
everyone. Terima kasih.
Ya.
Selamat
Bye.
pagi.
Assalamualaikum
Good
warahmatullahi
evening.
Bye.
wabarakatuh.
Bye. Thank you very much.